Best defenses in college football this year. Best defenses across the country, regardless of conference. Who's it going to be? I think Ohio State makes a strong case here. Now, I want us to pause for a second, and I want us to think 3 or 4 years back. Ryan Day is, at that point, a very new head coach at Ohio State, and he's an offensive-minded guy, and it's going to be an offensive-minded program, and they're going to score, and hopefully get enough stops to win. That was Ohio State football. Whether he would say that publicly or not, that was their MO when he took over. Whomst amongst us would think 3 or 4 years later, you were going to have a team that could win games defensively. They did that last year. And now you look at them, they were number 2 in points per game last year. They feature the number 1 returning S&P Plus defense entering 2024. They got 9 returning on that side of the ball, and they added Caleb Downs from Alabama. So, I don't know how good Will Howard will be. Maybe we'll go up there and find out for ourselves before spring's over. I'm not sure how good he'll be. I think they've got world-class talent there. Some of it's unrealized because it hasn't been featured yet. But even if they don't, even if it takes that offense a little while to get its collective legs under it, they could win games defensively. And so it may not be, if there is such a thing, vintage Ryan Day Ohio State to start off with. It's also a classic recipe for a defense that gives its offense time, and then all of a sudden you're watching them in November and they look way different than they did in September. That's kind of college football in general. It could be Ohio State this year. Georgia, we're never going to do a segment on this show about best defenses in college football where we don't at least mention Georgia. Now, I know the pushback here, and we're getting towards preview magazine season, and I know what those preview mags will say. They'll talk about how much attrition there was. As you know, Meemaw used to tell us all the time, did she not? Everybody focuses on who you lost. Not enough people talk about who you have. That's true in coaching. That's true in roster management. And they lost production at every level there at Georgia. But the thing about it is they got 24 underclassmen on defense with experience, with some games played under their belt. We were down there last month. And suffice it to say, there is not a lot of freak out and concern about how good they'll be defensively. They're not satisfied, nowhere close to that, and they're worried about depth. Yes, even at Georgia, they worry about depth, as does everyone else in the country, but they feel like they got the horses in stable. I mean, you've got guys like Michael Williams, Hardaway High School, Columbus, Georgia. You got guys like Malachi Starks. At those 2 of 3 levels of defense, they could be the best players in the country at their position. So again, when you doubt things at Georgia, it is a very first world doubt. It's a very first world problem. I would look up the road at Penn State. Penn State always finds their way into this conversation of best defenses in college football. They lost some secondary pieces. It would be my focus. My question about Penn State would be, how do they replace those pieces in the secondary? Now, they went and got A.J. Harris, formerly of Central High School, just across the river from Columbus, Georgia. They went and got Jalen Kimber. Those guys have to pan out. And that's the kind of phraseology you're using about a lot of college football teams right now. If fill in the blank from the portal works out, then, I don't know, all of your goals are attainable. They should be elite on the edge again this year. And Penn State's identity has been forged on the defensive side as of late. So I don't have much doubt they'll be good. Will they be great? I think a lot of that depends, statistically at least, on how those corners shake out and those DBs shake out. And Michigan. I got chewed out the other day by a lot of our Michigan viewers, kind of rightfully so, because I kind of glossed over how good they could be defensively. They could be really good defensively. And for all the doubt or consternation or concern about what all they lost offensively and coaching staff, man, there's a mainstay there. Like Mason Graham was really good last year, and he's back. Linebacker core, great big green check mark next to them, for me at least. Will Johnson's there. So kind of like we said with Ohio State, if it takes your offense a while to get its collective footing, you got guys over there. You can win an ugly 16-12 game if you need to. It's not the recipe. It's not the blueprint, but they absolutely can do that. So I know it's not a shock, guys. Like, I understand if we're sitting here in spring, yeah, most people know Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Michigan are going to have good personnel over there. However, do we not see other teams with good personnel every year flame out on one side of the ball or the other, only to find ourselves asking, how did they squander that much talent? So it's not just a given because you've got the ingredients in the kitchen that we're going to have a half-decent meal. Now, it is a given if you don't have them, your meal's going to suck. And we've been using that metaphor a whole lot lately, and I understand that. And we'll get out of the kitchen eventually. But those are the ones I'm looking at. I'd be very interested to read the comment section on that.